goosebumps every time, yeah, 713. Through the 281, yeah, I'm riding. Why they on me? Why they on me? I'm flying, sipping low-key. I'm sipping low-key and honest, rider. I get those goosebumps every time. I'm around, yeah. I'm on, you make everything feel fine. I get those goosebumps every time. I need the hype, throw that to the side. I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. When you're not around me, throw that to the side. I get those goosebumps every time.
Up the mags.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, people, and welcome back to Loaded Mag NUFC. It's turned around again. The big match preview is here, and we've got a fantastic guest to come on and talk all about it. But is it safe to ask how everyone is today?
We'll give it a go. I think today. I'm okay. I was in the office today, very busy day in the office, but you know what ruined my day in the office after all the trials and tribulations over the weekend? I saw a guy with the Man United jersey on. What is he doing? What has he got to celebrate? They won one game and that's it. If it was a Liverpool jersey, fair enough. They have something to celebrate. Neil could even be in with his Premier League T-shirt on. He's celebrating at this stage. They're so far ahead of everyone else. Or maybe that's the false sense of security we're trying to portray. How are you, Chris?
All right, mate. Yeah, I was disappointed to miss you lads last night, but I've been away at the lakes, which was really nice. Had a really nice weekend. Ironically, I was actually quite glad that I missed the game in the end, because it sounded absolutely dreadful. I don't like missing games, but yeah, if there was a game to miss by the sounds of it, the game on Saturday was the one to miss. I've obviously seen the highlights and stuff, and yeah, really, really disappointing. But obviously, if anyone who was watching, I was in the chat, so it was great to catch up with you boys and see your thoughts on the game. But yeah, I'm on the whole, mate. I'm all good. Work was all right today. I'm in the office on Wednesday, with the idea of going out into town straight after to watch the match. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I'm all good. Really looking forward to having Neil on. Neil, as you would know, is one of my favourite away day guests. So really looking forward to having Neil on and talking a bit more about the match on Wednesday. But Pete, how are you, mate? You good?
All good. Always all good. Apart from talking about Newcastle United. But we've got to do it. We go over the highs and the lows of football. And look, let's not beat around the bush. Let's get him in. And it's an absolute pleasure to welcome back Neil Atkinson of the Anfield Wrap to talk all things Newcastle and in particular Liverpool. So let's welcome him in.
Welcome, Neil.
Hello. Nice
Great to have you.
Excellent. Are we all excited about
onto the
Wednesday?
pitch.
Yeah, we're all excited about Wednesday. It'll be a good game.
I don't know whether excited is probably the right word. But yeah, we're looking towards the game, that's for sure. But I can understand why you're very excited at the moment, bouncing in to Wednesday after a fantastic performance and result against Man City. That's for sure. And I'm sure you're still on cloud nine after that, I imagine.
Yeah, it was. It's worth saying. I thought they'd come a little stronger. I thought they actually play all right second half City. I think they found themselves just a little bit during the game. So, I think that's something that they can try to build on from here. But being, 9 clear of Arsenal and 11 clear of them after 13 games is just fantastic. I don't think City get back into this now, really. They look injured, frankly. They look absolute, I was watching Kyle Walker walk when the game was breaking down in the ground, and he just wasn't fit, and he's getting picked. And I'm not saying that anyone's being negligent there. I think they've got to put 11 on the pitch. So you pick your captain and you ask him to go push through the pain barrier. But he looked like he was in pain, and Ake was good, but didn't look fully fit. And you can just sort of go through a lot of that side and say they either look knackered or not fully fit. And I just think they need to have a bit of a reset, a bit of a restart. And they can still win the Champions League. They're full of good players. He's a good manager. Obviously, he's a great manager. So I think, they can reset back in. They should still come top four. But I do think it's Arsenal who are the likeliest now to chase us down. And, they're a good side and they're in really, really good shape as well. But we've got to enjoy it, got to really, really relish it. It's a genuine opportunity now. And I'm looking forward to Wednesday as part of that process. And then Saturday is also enormous. So, it's a big week for us, really. We're only halfway through this. It was all before the ball was kicked this season. We knew there'd be a Champions League game, and then it was Real Madrid, and then it was going to be Real Madrid, Man City, Newcastle away, Everton away. That's a big run. It's a hard run. So, we'll see where we are at the end of it. But if we continue as we're playing, then we should be in good shape.
You've started well in that run. Two big results.
Yeah.
To put you on that run going into Christmas time. But look, let's just rewind a little bit. Obviously, of course, Jurgen Klopp left the back end of last season. Arne Slot came in, and I don't think any Liverpool fan that I've spoken to expected what is currently happening with Liverpool Football Club, certainly in the first season. For you, what's been the biggest change from what has been happening in the last couple of seasons to now? What's been the big change for you? And what are you seeing on the pitch, off the pitch, on the pitch in particular, that's propelled you back into this position where you are being so dominant right now?
I thought we challenged, to be clear. The players got good players, and your players, your first port of call. I thought we'd be in a conversation with Man City and Arsenal. I'm surprised how much Arsenal have been impacted by events, and I'm surprised, obviously, that City have fallen off the way in which they have. But if you'd have said to me after 13 games we'd be 1-9, drawn 3, lost 1, I wouldn't have gone with that. How on earth could that be the case? Last season we were in the title challenge until April. And it just sort of ran out of legs. We had injury issues, and it just got a little bit tough for everyone, really. And then there was the emotional aspect of the manager going, and then it all sort of crashed down a little bit. But that was a good side. It was a good side that, for instance, got itself into. We had a really good game against Man City last year in March, where we could have won the game. We should have got a last-minute penalty, and then you never know what might have happened from there. So that aspect of this is not that much of a surprise to me. That said, one of the things that's changed is, last season, Jurgen very much had the handbrake off, and Liverpool were constantly all intensity, all go. Every game from the outset, absolutely looking to pile in. And what we've seen, I think, is better game management, a bit more maturity, choosing your moment. Don't get me wrong, I think we might have seen a lot of that under Jurgen anyway. Jurgen took the side on that journey up to the 2019-20 season as Liverpool manager. 17-18, when we got to the Champions League final and got beat by Madrid, that was all intensity, all chaos, unbelievable football. But ultimately, we still came fourth and we were vulnerable. And then growing through the following season, by the time you get to 2019 calendar year, it's a much more mature side. And that's what we've seen this season. There's much more maturity. They're much calmer. They managed to pick the moments in games. It's not full throttle for the whole game. And City's a really good example. They were 1-0 up on 20-25. And any of you watching the game will acknowledge they should be 2 ahead. They have the chances to go 2 ahead. Last season, they'd have just kept banging until it got to 2. They'd have just kept banging. And it got to about 25. And what they did was they went, no, we're all right here. We'll just have half time. We'll take a breath. If they make a mistake, we'll take advantage of it, but we don't need to keep going. We'll just relax because our chance will come. And what we'll do in the meantime is we'll cover up a little bit, be a bit more responsible, see if we can break on them, but we think we can keep them at arm's length. Last season, they'd have tried to make it 2, and they might have let one in the other way and gone 1-1. That's what they're doing better. And then in the second half, again, they suffered really well. Last season, they weren't suffering well. They were finding that aspect of the game's difficult, but when City improve a little bit, they're there, and then they counter-attacked on them really, really strongly. And that's what's gone up a level. I think game management's gone up a level, the maturity's gone up a level. And from that, they're looking after themselves, and they're looking after the games more. So, I think that's, for me, that's the best thing about it. And long may it continue, because, they've put in some excellent performances at the moment, and it is just sort of helping them through this little process at the minute. And it's worth saying a fair few of them are still quite young, but there's a ton of experience in there as well. And I think all of that's a really nice blend. It's a really nice blend of youth and experience.
Definitely. It's interesting you said that about the taking off, like sort of taking their foot off the gas, whereas they weren't doing that previously, maybe under the previous manager, because I'm starting to think, boys, from a Newcastle's perspective, whether that's something that Eddie Howe's been bringing in recently, because the way we've been playing. So we go back to the season we finished fourth, Neil. We were kind of like it was rock and roll, like going to the wheel every time, just going at it for 90 minutes, non-stop, all the time. And then all of a sudden, this season, after the injuries season, it's kind of not been like that, whereas most Newcastle United fans think that that's been the case. I'm just starting to think in the top of my head, like, is that something that Eddie Howe's maybe brought in to his game? And, you know, is it working for us? It clearly is for you, but it might, I don't think it is for us, but it's just an observation there, just from what you've said. It's an interesting one. But look, Liverpool are flying. This the year. Could you get that Premier League title back? Are you confident?
Yeah. You know, not being sort of. I mean, you're 9 points clear after 13 games. You've been at the Emirates. You know, and if I'm saying that, I think they're going to be our toughest rival. Well, they've still got to come to Anfield, and we've been to their place. So you know that bodes well. Listen, there's games coming up. Last season we got beat at Spurs, albeit in contentious circumstances. We got beat at Everton and deserved to. You know, we took our medicine there last year, big time. We drew with West Ham in a game we should have won last season as well. So, and we've got all of these games coming up before the end of December. So it's very, very possible we end up, you know, slipping back a little bit towards where Arsenal currently are. But you know, we've got this lead for a reason. We've won 5 games out of 5 in Europe. We've played our 2 pot 1 teams, and we played our 2 pot 2 teams, and we've won 5 games out of 5. You know, this team is now, for ages, everyone was saying Liverpool haven't played anyone yet. Well, Liverpool have played everyone now. You know, we played Chelsea, we beat them. You know, we played Villa, we beat them. Manchester City, well, we beat them. So, you know, as I say, we didn't lose when we went to Arsenal. So, you know, you're just sort of at the point where you've got to say, well, we've been to Old Trafford, albeit now it's a different manager, but we beat them. You know, it would be mad if I sat here and went, oh, no, the Premier League, you know what I mean? There's a long way to go. There sort of isn't, but a third of the way through the season, and, you know, Liverpool look in the shape that they look in. That doesn't mean I think they're going to win the league by 27 points and just keep extending this gap. It doesn't mean I think it'll be easy either. I think there's so much work to do. But you just couldn't ask for any more at this point in time. You know, it's gone about as well as it would have been possible to go, especially for the new manager, who, as I say, I thought he'd do well, but I didn't think he'd do this well. It's a remarkable run that he's on. And I feel as though those players are absolutely with him in terms of what it is that he wants. And, you know, it's worth remembering that these lads have been in title challenges. They've lost 2, won 1. Whilst they've been at Liverpool, they've made 3 Champions League finals. Some of them lost 2, won 1 of that as well. Arguably had a little bit of hard lines under the previous manager, but I don't think that washes anymore. And so right now, I feel as though, you know, we can be confident. Again, it does not mean it will be easy. I think it'll be really, really difficult, but we're in good shape.
Mohamed Salah.
Yep.
Seems like he's absolutely fit and firing, back to his formidable best this season. His levels maybe slightly dropped. There was some statistics on Sky that they showed after the game yesterday that suggested that his levels had dropped in some ways, whether it's his physical attributes or his physical output, not necessarily his numbers. But it seems like it's all coming together this season. Lots of talk, and Jamie Carragher has been very vocal on this with regards to his future. Where do you see Mohamed Salah's future? Do you see Liverpool putting the money down for him to sign a new contract, or do you think this is kind of almost sort of the long goodbye and that he will eventually leave at some point in the summer?
I think he'll stay. I think Liverpool. I think you've got to talk about the 3 of them together, because I think Liverpool are in a little bit of a situation, and so much of it involves, I think, where the budget is in general, but I think it also just involves how you want to pay structure the club. So the complexity in this is Trent Alexander-Arnold. I think Trent Alexander-Arnold's going to leave on a free transfer. I think he's going to go to Real Madrid. But at the moment, that's not confirmed. And we can only presume Liverpool don't know that for a fact. The issue you've got is that Trent Alexander-Arnold's got a resale value. Now, I don't believe Liverpool's owners are actually that intimately involved in what's going on in terms of Liverpool's contract. I don't think that they actually care that much, frankly. But it's worth saying that if Trent Alexander-Arnold signs a contract, then he's got an immediate resale value that might well be in excess of 100 million. don't worry about the actual amount, but there's a resale value there that, if Liverpool Football Club could be, if it was sold on the open market, it might be worth £3 billion. But that lad, therefore, is like literally 3% of that value when you actually stop to think about that for a minute. So the people who are running Liverpool on the football side have got a big problem here, because if I own Liverpool and you're going to let one of our assets who's worth 3% of our actual value walk away for free, I want to know you've done everything in your power to try to keep him within the budgets that we've talked about and that we've set, and you've got an argument around it. So I think that there's almost like in my mind, the more I think about this, and I've been thinking about it a lot, there's almost like a diligence thing that Liverpool need to go through, because the flip side of this, I think, is you don't want Liverpool, when they gave Salah his last contract, almost made Salah an exception. So his last contract, Salah's on, so it's reported that if he activates loads of his bonuses, he's on the other side of 800 grand a week once everything comes through. But his base is about 350. Liverpool run a really strong bonus-based model, and that's what it's about. But genuinely, the rumour is that Salah, once it all comes out in the wash, Salah is on a huge sum of money out of Liverpool, plus all of his other endorsement deals and so on. Salah's an exception. The second highest paid player at the club is Virgil van Dijk. And ultimately, Virgil van Dijk is reported on basic to be on approximately 33% less than Mo Salah. Now, at most clubs, everyone takes the line from the high earner, but Liverpool have made Salah an exception. And when he signed the contract, like the first comment underneath was Virgil saying made up about this on the Instagram posts and all that. It was Virgil coming out about it. And so I think what Liverpool do is they structure every wage, not off Salah's wage, but off Virgil van Dijk's. If Trent Alexander-Arnold ends up on Salah money, you create a circumstance for yourself where your right back is effectively the line, and he is at least the second highest paid player at the club, and that gives you a big problem, because everyone else walks in and says, "Well, I'm not greedy. I'll have 90% of what the right back's on." That's and if the right back's on going up to Salah levels of money, suddenly you've got a wage structure issue. And I think that this is the push and pull of all of this. But if your right back's decided he's going to go to Real Madrid, that's what he wants. Liverpool won't match what Real Madrid will offer, and that's where he wants to go, and he'll get a big signing on bonus from Real Madrid, and that's how it's going to work. Then I think Liverpool are then in a position to come to the agreement and keep Salah as an exception. And then what you do is you sign Van Dijk up for another couple of years, and then everyone says Ibu Konate's contract is up, not this summer, coming the summer after. So Ibu sits down, and Ibu's agent walks in, and he says, I'll have 80% of what Van Dijk gets. At which point, it's like, well, we can work with that. That's feasible. If he comes in and says, I'll have 80% of what Trent Alexander-Arnold's on, so that's more. That could be more than you're currently paying Van Dijk, and more than you pay Van Dijk in his next exception. And now suddenly you've got this problem. Football clubs are like a lot of other workplaces. A lot of people don't care what they earn; they care what other people earn. And you've got to really work within that. And Liverpool have managed to create this circumstance where Salah's an exception, but it's dead hard to do Salah now if you don't know whether or not you've got budget, because you're going to do so. You might come to an arrangement with Trent. So I think that's the ongoing sort of sticking point here. I think Salah will sign. I think Trent will confirm he's going. And then I think Salah and Virgil will actually happen relatively quickly.
So in your opinion, if Salah's going to stay, is he going to stay on his current structure, or is there an argument that he's going to potentially ask for more money then?
Well, that's the key question. So I'm very happy for Mo Salah to say whatever he wants in a mix zone. I don't mind at all. I'm not precious about this stuff. But there is a bit of an argument to say it wouldn't be the maddest thing in the world for a journalist to say, that's very interesting, Mo. Are you asking for more money? When he comes out and says he's desperate to sign for Liverpool. Again, he wants to stay at Liverpool another year. It wouldn't be unreasonable for someone in that mix zone to say, you're happy to come and talk to us about this, and you're introducing this. And trust me, Mo Salah's not said much in many mix zones. But it wouldn't be unreasonable for someone to actually now ask that question, push back and go, well, hang on, just to be clear, say money. Are you prepared to take a reduction? Do you want more money? Where's the line here? You're saying you're desperate to stay at Liverpool. You're the one who's opening that conversation. Yeah. So I'm very much of the view that, but full stop, I don't mind what Salah's doing. And I know that Jamie's been a little bit outspoken about it and feels as though, it causes issues. It doesn't seem to be causing any issues anywhere. Let's be clear about this. That doesn't seem to be the way in which it's going. But I think that's where it'll end up playing out to do. And then from there, whatever happens with Salah, whether it's a 1-year extension, a 2-year extension, I think also then the next move. The question popped up before about, would Liverpool accept a big bid from Saudi? That's not in Liverpool's gift. I don't think Mo Salah will go to Saudi Arabia. I think he's more likely to go to the United States. And if he was to leave Liverpool this summer, I think he'd want to stay in European football and still try to win the highest honours. I don't think Mo Salah is, Mo Salah's not interested in the retirement home, which is the Saudi Arabian League. He still feels, and is right, by the way, because look where we are now, to feel as though he can compete for the biggest prizes in the game. So I'd be astonished if that was the case, right now. He thinks he's going to play till he's 40 as well. I think he's likelier to look to the United States. I think that's long been a direction of travel for Salah and his key advisor. The last contract negotiation, they actually gave it to Harvard as a case study for Harvard Business School. He's been on the cover of Time magazine. He's had his mural in New York. The World Cup's in New York in 2026. Egypt will qualify for that World Cup. I think it is likely that Mo Salah goes that way and replaces something like what the religion Messi has at the moment, than he goes anywhere else. But in the meantime, I just think he thinks he can, whether it's with Liverpool or someone else, I think he thinks, well, I can win 2 more Champions Leagues.
Just to jump in, sorry, Pete. Just to say, Neil, I completely agree with you. By the way, that's how I see it playing out. I've been convinced now for a long time that I think Salah and Van Dijk will sign new deals, but Trent will leave. And touching on Trent, it is a shame, particularly when you lose, home produced players, isn't it? Potentially for the free transfer. What I wanted to ask you was, do you think the emergence of Conor Bradley, who's really impressed, since he's come in, do you think that's playing any part in terms of the hierarchy, looking at it and going, yeah, it's a shame we're losing out on Trent and everything you've just explained, about the contracts and stuff like that. But do you think also the fact that it looks like you've got a pretty decent replacement in terms of not having to go out and spend 50, 60 million on a new right back? Do you think that plays in?
I think it might do. I think in general, if they could come to an arrangement with Trent that didn't put him onto effectively Salah levels of money, I think they probably look to. But I just think there's more money out there for Trent elsewhere. I also think that we've got to allow the idea that Trent himself, I know he's a homegrown player, but I'm open to the idea he might just want a different way of life. I'm actually not really. I think if you're Trent, there's been 3 or 4 years where you've got an unbelievable magnifying glass on you playing football in this country, because Trent drives clicks and engagements, and the highest profile pundits in the country is a former right back who just basically won't shut up about him. And I think that there's an element, and also there's been, there's England team contention. It's hard to be a footballer who everyone's got an opinion about. I actually think, no, everyone's not got an opinion about Mo Salah. What I mean is, it's just broadly accepted he's absolutely brilliant. Virgil van Dijk, has everyone got an opinion? Well, it's just broadly accepted he's absolutely brilliant. Trent Alexander-Arnold makes one mistake at the back post, and there's 1.5 million posts on social media telling you he's shite and can't defend. Despite the fact that he's played for a team that's won everything there is to win in the game. That's what happens to Trent Alexander-Arnold. Kyle Walker makes the same mistake. No one says a word. But Trent is, for whatever reason, he drives engagement in this country, and that, I think there's a point where that weighs on him a bit. And I think it wouldn't surprise me if he thinks, well, I can go to Madrid, win every prize in the game at Madrid, get paid a bucket load of cash, and what happens is people won't talk about me that much. Now, that slightly goes against this thing you said recently about wanting to win the Ballon d'Or and all of that. To do that, you've got to be a very, very high-profile player. But I do just sort of wonder, if you are Trent Alexander-Arnold, you're just thinking to yourself, well, I can just go and have 5 years of excellent football and feel as though every single year I'm going to be in a title challenge and I'm going to be in the business end of the Champions League every single year. And then I might score the winner, and I might do something that leads them to give me a Ballon d'Or, and I might get me medal sorted. And also, I might just learn to speak Spanish and have a nice life, and, all of that. People move away. And just because, Liverpool miss out on a transfer fee, it's a little bit annoying, because obviously that impacts the way the club would operate. But ultimately, it's Fenway Sports Group's money. It's not mine. And I'm, my attitude is, well, if that's what he wants to do, as I say, if you didn't feel like, if you felt like he let us down in some way, or he hadn't achieved X, Y, or Z, he's done it. He's won everything. So
Neil, just a question linked to that, and it comes from Andy Ford. He asked the question, does he think if Trent leaves on a free, it damages his legacy? He should have added hashtag Michael Owen in that, I think, as well.
Yeah, I don't think it does. What it doesn't do is it doesn't strengthen his legacy. is what I would say. You know, the thing that's on offer at the minute, especially with us doing ever so well, you know, could well be, well, you could win another 3 league titles and, you know, end up being your nailed on all-time Liverpool right back in your all-time Liverpool team. But I don't think it undermines what he's done to this point. It just means it undermines the idea that he could play 750 games for Liverpool and win everything there is to win in the game 3 or 4 times with us if we were lucky. And he was lucky as well. You know, I think it's important not to sort of take what footballers have achieved off them out of some sort of contextual thing. He's achieved what he's achieved. He came through the ranks. He's a local player who has effectively been part of what I think could be the greatest Liverpool team ever to have played. If you look at the points hauls that it got over and over again, the Champions League finals that it made and the Champions League that it won. You know, he was on the pitch for the greatest night in Anfield history against Barcelona. He's been there. The only time we ever won the Club World Cup, as much as people mock that sort of thing. That's the way in which it goes. So I'm quite relaxed about it. McManaman's an interesting comparison, but McManaman hadn't won anything. He'd won 1 League Cup. He was on an FA Cup. Sorry, he won a League Cup and an FA Cup, but he hadn't won the other prizes. You know, I think McManaman's underrated as a Liverpool legend, like underrated literally as a footballer. I think he's underrated. He is underrated as a footballer in England as well because he went and did his business years out in Madrid. I think Trent's underrated now, frankly, or has been, or as I said before, it's all contentious. But I think Liverpool supporters know how good he is and how special he's been. So it's more that he loses the ability to add to his legacy is a bigger problem than the idea that it tarnishes anything he's done.
It's something that's going to rumble on, of course, over the season. It won't be the last time, I'm sure, Neil, that you're going to be talking about it. Certainly on the
absolutely not.
Maybe a weekly saga from January onwards. That's for sure. But I just want to turn our attention just very quickly to Newcastle United. So I want to get your thoughts on this. Myself, Daz, and Chris, we've done a lot of talking, particularly in the last week or so, a lot of frustration in the fan base at the moment, particularly after the last 2 results against West Ham and Crystal Palace. Not been the kind of season that we expected it to be, having just missed out on European football through a technicality of Man United winning the FA Cup.
Yeah.
Injuries last season hampered the Champions League, hampered us really pushing up the table, only 8 points away from Champions League football in the end after all those injuries. And we expected us to be able to attack each game, playing once a week. Hasn't quite materialised in terms of performances and now results, not necessarily going our way. I just want to get your thoughts on Newcastle United. It's been a while since we talked to you about Newcastle United. Where do you see Newcastle United at the moment? Huge talk in sections of the fan base around Eddie Howe. Just what do you make of us at the moment in the way it's going for Newcastle United?
I think in a really weird way, I think you've just sort of lost a little bit of joy. I think it feels like the project's just become a little bit of a slog for everyone. Whenever I saw the second half against Crystal Palace, and I was, first and foremost, I think it's a really good goal. The Newcastle goal. It's a really good goal. Like, I know it's an own goal, but it's a really good goal and it's really well worked. And it shows that there's, invention in those players in there. But I think something's just gone. I feel like sometimes what happens almost in any walk of life, I suppose, in a way, people almost get taken with the slog and forget a bit of the magic. And at the minute, it looked like the big thing I took from the Crystal Palace game was I thought that the players worked. Not one Newcastle United player shirked all game. They all grafted and grafted and grafted. No one, Dan Burns putting his body on the line. There's moments all over the place where I just thought there was full commitment. No one pulled out of a challenge. All the stuff that you might say if it's not going quite as well as you'd like. I just feel a little bit like Newcastle just become a bit of a team where the first thing everyone does is graft. And the thing that no one's got or no one quite finds a way to show is guile. And I think that it's the job of the manager now, I think, to get back to a little bit of guile. Now, that isn't the case on Wednesday. I think that the way Newcastle get a result at St James's Park against Liverpool is by working harder than Liverpool. That's the way in which, you get results against really good sides. That's the first port of call. But it's interesting if you actually look at the teams that will be in that conversation, I think, for fourth. Brighton have now played the 3 sides who are in the bottom 3 at home, and they've drawn with all 3 of them. Newcastle, you've had your issues when you've been coming up against sides who are in the bottom half of the table. You've not been putting them to the sword the way in which you should, and that includes some games that you've gone ahead in. Tottenham are capable of putting 4 past Manchester City, but will get beat at home by Ipswich, have got beat by Crystal Palace. But the sides who are currently doing the best in that arena are Chelsea, who've won every game against the teams in the bottom half they've played, apart from one frustrating draw against Crystal Palace. And the way you break into the top 4, it's not by beating Arsenal, Liverpool, and Manchester City. The way you break into the top 4 is by beating the bottom 10 home and away. And I think that where Newcastle have ended up is, whilst the first time you got into the top 4, it was a bit of a funny season, but you did it with a lot of muscularity, and I think you surprised a lot of teams. I think that now I'm almost of the view, and I really like Willock, I really like Joel Linton, I really like Gamaresh, I really like Tonali. I actually think Longstaff's a good player, but I feel as though when I watch Newcastle, they just look to me like they're an attacker light. A lot of the times he's picking a team that's an attacker light, and then it doesn't help obviously when you play Crystal Palace and Isak goes off. But but ultimately I feel as though I know that the strength of that powered the previous Champions League run. And don't get me wrong, there's a time and a place for that strength. I look at Newcastle's fixtures coming up. I know there's us on the horizon, but you've got a run around Christmas where you play Villa at home, United away, and Tottenham away. And if you get 5 points from that through strength and grit and determination, that'll be a good 5 points. If you get 7, absolute dream street. But before then, you've got to find a way to undress Brentford away, Leicester at home, Ipswich away, and get through your EFL Cup game. And genuinely, Newcastle should take 9 points from Brentford away, Leicester City at home, and Ipswich away. That should be 9 points for Newcastle. And it's funny to think, I think, as an outsider, I almost can see a world where it's likely Newcastle get 5 or 7 in the 3 harder games than it is that they get 9 in the 3 easier games. Yeah. But you've got to get that you've got to start putting those points in the bank. And I think to do that, I think he's got to try to find a way to at least be playing 3 forwards, because that midfield he's got, with its strength and its ability to move the ball quickly and its direct play, that midfield that he's got, it's quite reminiscent to me a little bit of what we used to have when we had Fabinho, Henderson and Wijnaldum. But we then had up front Salah, Firmino and Mane, 3 lads who could all play number 9. 3 number 9s up front in different ways, coming in different areas. 3 players capable of 20 a season and 3 players capable of magic. And I think he's got to find a way to unleash Hall and Livramento. If he wants to have the strong midfield, that's fine. Pick 3 of them and not 4. Pick 3 and not 4. Certainly when you're playing Ipswich, pick 3 and not 4. And find a way to do that. And I think that if he does that, and if he can sort of settle into that, and I think he's had a little bit of hard lines in a couple of areas, but I think, I think if he can find a little bit of a way to do that, then I think that it's all still there for Newcastle. And the other thing to point out is, when you look at the league table at the moment, well, it is, there's no gap. One result changes everything. At the moment, you're 4 points behind Brighton. 4 points behind City, 6 behind Chelsea, I think I'm right in saying. So, it doesn't take that much of a run, but you've got to get on one, because what Chelsea look like they're built to do is to beat the bottom 10 home and away. And if you take 50 points from the 60 that's available against the bottom 10, then, it takes 74 to get to the Champions League. You've only got to find 24 more points from the remaining 19 games. It's 18 games, sorry. It's not that difficult. And then if you've got somewhere like St. James's on your side, you're getting somewhere. So I think that's his job and that's his task. And I think if you can do that, then I think you'll be in good nick. And I think that there's pretty much the personnel there. I think he probably should be looking at, if he can get in a right-sided forward in January. I think you maybe might have been smart to find a way to keep Alder Minter, but it is what it is now.
Yeah. Everything you've just said, Neil, I think we on this channel have literally saying exactly the same. And you've noticed that pretty much in just the short little stints that you've been watching Newcastle United, off against Palace, and just the little bits that you've caught.
And the big games, and then when you look back and you see what the information is, and you have a little, and the best way to sort of imagine it is actually, how's that happened? Is sort of, and I'm doing that a lot with Tottenham at the minute. So it isn't just Newcastle this is happening to. And there's a reason why that table is congested. You know what I mean? There's if you go, West Ham could go either way, but everyone above West Ham, I would genuinely say is a good side. I genuinely would say that they're a good side. But, you shouldn't be drawing 0-0 with Everton. I'm sorry, you just shouldn't be. And I don't care that it's Goodison Park for you. Goodison Park, straightforward. For us, it isn't. Yes, and I accept away games are difficult, but that shouldn't be happening. You certainly shouldn't be getting beat 2-0 at home by West Ham. I mean, good God. And if you just change those 2 results, just change those 2, the conversation you're having on this show is massively different. If you just win those 2 games, then in this moment, you've got 5 more points.
Neil,
5 more points, you're saying, lads, can we have a title charge here if Liverpool slip up?
Neil, we said exactly this yesterday. Me and Daz were talking about this, and we literally said it about the West Ham and the Palace game. Had we won those 2 games, we'd have been sitting in 4th. And would have been comfortable, like in 4th, with maybe a couple of points to spare, away from the rest of the teams below us. Yeah. And the conversation is very, very different. But I think the issue now with Newcastle United fans is everything you've just said. And we talked about it yesterday. Fulham away, although Fulham are doing well, we won there the last 2 or 3. You know, you're looking at Brighton at home. Normally do well against them. Brighton were awful that day, and they admitted that, and fans did, and we should have won that game. Then you've got West Ham, then you've got Palace. You know, they're games that we should have been winning, and we haven't. And this is the frustration. This is not just a bad week. There's other games this season against those teams that we would expect to be taking points from and winning. And we haven't, and you've said it there. You know, Brentford, Leicester,
Bournemouth.
Bournemouth, earlier on in the season, they're games you should be looking forward to and going, we can get points on the board here. Let's go out and do that. And we're just not confident that we can, and we've just got something missing, and we just can't put our fingers on it exactly. People have got different.
Trying to beat that low block that we're faced against those teams below us or well below us that we just haven't been able to unlock, and we get suckered into it then and get hit on the counter attack, which we want to do ourselves.
Do you know we've struggled a bit with Neil as well, and Eddie Howe's in the middle of like trying to transition us, if you like. We've been used to often surrendering possession.
Yeah.
So teams have a lot more possession than what we do, and we hit them on the counter. We saw it a lot in the 22-23 season. That's where we got most of our success. And slowly we've been trying to evolve where we dominate the possession, but it almost feels like with the more possession we have, it's like the players are a little bit more, what do we do? And it all kind of looks very lethargic, and it all looks very like not sure what to do. We'll pass it there, then we'll pass it there, then we'll pass it there, then back, and then back, and then back, because these players aren't used to playing like that.
Yeah, but I think that's so. I think that happens to teams where you end up in a little bit of a situation where what's changed for Newcastle is that ultimately it's now broadly accepted for a lot of sides in the division that a point away at Newcastle for 17 sides in the division, a point away at Newcastle is a good result, and for at least 6, and I'd say possibly 9 or 10. A point at home to Newcastle is absolutely fine. You just sort of go, well, they're a good side. They've got a big budget. They've got that player. They were in the Champions League a couple of seasons ago. They're a good side. And everyone plays you then in that way. When you actually got to the Champions League, it was a bit of a surprise. You came with a run. You hung on for dear life. And I think that this is a thing that does happen to teams is that sides begin to change their expectation as to what should or shouldn't happen when they come up against you. And then you've got to sort of roll with that punch a little bit, but it's difficult for a manager. And I've got tons of sympathy, by the way. Well, I've got tons of sympathy for almost anyone who does that job. But I think what's difficult for a manager is when the pressure's on, when you're suddenly looking at Brentford away and you're thinking the big boys, I don't want to get made a fool of here. Let's go with what we know. I'll put my big boys on the pitch and I'll match them up. We'll have four midfield closer to midfielders, 2 closer to forwards in style. We'll be more stern, and then I can change it from the bench, and I'll give us half an hour, and you never know, we might get something if we need it. If not, we might be ahead, and we can. Do you know? I think managers fall back on what's worked in the past, not least because also players are going, well, that used to work. Well, can we do the stuff? If you try to change it and then it doesn't work, I think players can be a bit like, well, that did used to work, and I'm still really good. So what are you doing wrong? And he's managing people here, and that's a big part of this. And he's got to manage his own instincts. I just feel as though. Go on.
That was the 3 games.
That's right. I was just going to say that's exactly what Eddie Howe said, that he haven't changed anything and it's not working. And he kind of alluded that he didn't know why it wasn't working. But I think it has changed though, because you look at some of our performances this season, Daz, Eddie Howe's been questioned about some of his comments after the Palace game. But if you look at some of the games this season, and then you look at Chelsea at home in the Cup, you look at Arsenal at home, and you look at Forest away, they were 3 very different performances from what we've seen in the other games in that season. They were very much reminiscent from
the season we finished fourth, 22-23.
I thought you were great against Forest.
Yeah, but that performance right there, Neil, is what we saw when we finished fourth, week in, week out. And when we, after that game, because we'd had Arsenal and Chelsea playing similarly in those other two games and winning both, it was almost like going into the international break, we're like, okay, we've got our identity back now. We know what we're going to expect. And then we got to West Ham, and we started well for the first 10 minutes. He got hit with a sucker punch. And then everything just seems to have fell apart again, and it's like now we're back to we don't know what to expect. And I think we're with you on with regards to Wednesday. We'll give you a game. I'm not saying we're going to win, but we'll give you a game because against teams that will come at us like you will, and quite rightly so, we will find space to try and exploit you on the counter. We'll play that way, and we have done against Tottenham, we have done against Arsenal and against other teams, and we've been successful doing it. We will play that way, and we will get some joy. But the issue is not that. It's the issue against, like you said, the lesser teams and the players that you've just touched on that you like, people like Joe Linton and Willett. They're hard workers, they're industrial players, but when you need someone to break the lines with a really creative pass, or you need to find that little bit of 1-2 movement on the ball in short, sharp spaces, they don't have the ability to do that. They're not technically very good on the ball, and I think that's where Eddie Howe is really struggling with his transition and being a more possession-based team to giving teams the possession and then letting them hit them on the break with the pace and the workman-like players on the pitch. And it's I think honestly that's been the difficulty for Eddie Howe and the team.
Yeah, I agree with that. And as I say, I thought what was striking in the Forest game was that, first and foremost, I thought that Newcastle kept the nerve really well because it would have been an easy one to lose your nerve in. And I thought that those players just had a really clear sense of what it was they were trying to achieve and where. And then I thought there was also just a really good half time in play as well, where it freed a couple of players up. And I just sort of think, genuinely, I very rarely would just sort of say most of your problems can be solved in the transfer market. But, I think if Newcastle could have their eye on someone who can play right-hand side of that attack, I think it would just make a significant difference. I think there's an issue, which is whichever way you go, but then you've got to play the player. And that means you've got to maybe pick between Joe Linton and Joe Willock sometimes. You've got to maybe, within that sort of buy into a couple of other slightly icky decisions in certain games that you might not want because you might think, well, let's just go with the robust thing that we know. I look at Newcastle and I just think that if there was a player on the right who could carry the same threat that Gordon carries on the left on a regular basis, then you're in a position where Newcastle will become difficult to defend because there'd be a real sense that you can't get the ball out. They move it very, very quickly. Give Livramento a little bit of confidence and someone to dovetail with, a regular player in front of him. I think he should buy into, I don't think he necessarily should against us, but once we're out the way, I think he should buy into Tonali at the base, Gimenez to the right, and Joe Linton or Willock to the left. And then I think for those games that we've just talked about, before you get into that Christmas run, where, by the way, your strength can be your strength, everyone's knackered. So if you've got the hard working, hard running midfield for those games, it could absolutely work again. And also you might be coming up against a Manchester United who very desperately need a win, at which point you play on the counter and you're able to do that. The problem, I think, at the minute is he doesn't have both moves in his locker. He doesn't quite have, he doesn't have the option, I don't think, necessarily, that he doesn't have. So if Jacob Murphy was, for instance, 15% better, then he'd feel like he's got a bit more of a decision to make. I think the issue that he currently has is neither Barnes nor Gordon want to play that side, which is understandable, but Willock and Joe Linton want to play the other side. Gordon's done some good stuff from the right-hand side. It's worth pointing that out. But I think ultimately, for games against sides that are going to be in the bottom 10, he could do with having three players who all look like they could get at least 10 goals a season in that front three. And at the minute, he's only ever really picking two. And because of that, one of them, Anthony Gordon's, not got much goal threat because it's easier to double up on him. It's easier to compress his space. If you've got three players who carry genuine threat in an attack, well, the opposition are almost certainly playing four defenders. And it just literally creates more space. And I think at the minute, that's what and I think it's all new. And it'll be interesting to see what Liverpool do, because I think he will play Willock and Joe Linton. And it's not to talk those players down, but I think you can do a little bit of, let's sort of let him have it there. You can have it there for a bit. That's all right. Let him we'll be all right if he's got it there. He's in an area, he's not really going to hurt us. We can manage this out, but let's make sure we're paying attention to Isaac. Let's make sure we're paying attention to Gordon. Let's not give them any space. And I think just one more threat, and then maybe the fullbacks being a bit more involved. And then you've got the idea that I think you can be back to crushing teams, because you'll still have 3 really good, sturdy, hard-working midfielders who are all 6 foot tall and broad and physical, but you won't have 4. And I think that, to me, maybe I am oversimplifying, but I genuinely just think one more attacking threat that you can carry for a lot of games when you're playing against Crystal Palace, then you'll just see the benefits of it, because those players will just be continually involved, and then they'll have a platform and they'll score some goals.
Okay, well, we've got a few questions in the chat for you. If you're happy to take those questions, but I've got one to ask you just before that. Lots of murmurs in the Newcastle United fan base about our manager currently, Eddie Howe. There are lots that are saying Eddie Howe out, they want him gone. There are lots that are saying back him, get behind him, Eddie Howe in. Some fans think that he's ran his course, that he's been phase 1, as they refer to, and that we need a new manager in, a high-profile manager to take us forward. In that argument, where do you sit as an outsider on Eddie Howe currently at Newcastle United?
I think you've got to give him the season. I think it's worth pointing out you're still in a cup competition. I think that there's a journey point. We've talked on this show a lot about the journey points. There's no secrets. I'll get it out the way now and say I don't like the ownership. Obviously, I don't think countries should own football clubs. It's as simple as that. I don't particularly like our ownership in that they're a hedge funds. I think there's, you can get into those sorts of issues. But one thing that I think is really important, and I've said repeatedly when I've come on this show and talked to other Newcastle supporters, is that I think the most important thing that you can do is enjoy the journey. If the ownership is going to continue some level of investments, eventually everything bends your way in the fullness of time, if you see what I mean. There'll be the FFP questions to deal with, and there'll be all sorts of bits and pieces, but ultimately the game goes towards money. It's one of the reasons Manchester United will always be all right. It's one of the reasons Liverpool will always be all right. Don't get me wrong, I'm well aware of the fact that as a supporter of what is a super club, the lots of bits of the football universe bends in Liverpool's favour. So, I'm not splitting hairs about that. I'm not getting, I'm not saying we're some sort of remarkable case of constant nobility or anything like that. Like, quite literally, Liverpool are in a position now where, for the foreseeable future, because of the strength of the worldwide fan base and Liverpool as a brand, we'll always have really strong partnership income, and we'll always be in demand. So it works for us. The way the Premier League structures, it works for us. The way some of the rules structured, it works for us. Some of the other ones don't. And we've just been on the end of Manchester City winning God knows how many titles when we've been posting 90 points hauls. That's not worked for us. But in the meantime, we've watched some great football and it's gone really well. So let's be real about all that. My point being, I think Howe's been part of this journey, and whilst I think at the very least you're still in these cup competitions, I'd emotionally want that idea that Howe can lift the trophy with Newcastle. I think that more than anything, you want a trophy. And I think that journey towards that first trophy, I think the more you can keep the band together, I think it's a good thing, not a bad thing. So I think I'd want to give them the rest of this season. And if you get to the end of this season and Newcastle have finished 9th and you got beat by Brentford and you went out in the 4th round of the FA Cup, then I think you can say, well, you know what, we all gave this a good crack at the whip and he moves, and we get someone else in. I think if you get to the end of the season and you finish 5th and the Champions League places go down to 5 and there's no trophy, then there might be a little bit of a decision to make in terms of, do we think that we need to bring someone in who can do the silverware points? How would be able to make his case, but it could well be that there's a manager on the market who everyone feels as though is a good long-term bet, and Newcastle maybe act boldly. And then the flip side is, if he wins a trophy and it's a strong league finish, then I think he's giving you the thing that you want. And it's a milestone on the journey. You might not have Champions League football at the end of that season, but you might have Europa League football. And then guess what? You might win the Europa League. I always felt what happens, I think, to Newcastle in the Champions League last season, in a way, it would have been more in Eddie Howe's long-term interest to have come 5th the season before, because then it wouldn't have set an expectation. I think Newcastle probably would have done really well in the Europa League, and Newcastle better or worse than Atalanta, who won it. Well, they give them a game. They give them a game, let's be clear. And you'd have given them a game last season. I know there was the injury issues, but part of the reason, again, why there was injury issues was everyone who was in the first 11 was expected to play every game and wanted to play every game because it's Champions League football. We've just done all the hard work, so we get the reward. Whereas if it was Europa League football, they could have been making 6 changes, 7 changes, and you still would have got through the group phase, and you never know. So, I think it's I like Howe in that, you're not meant to like other managers, but I think he seems like an all right fella. I think he's done a really good job. I think it might be time to move on at the end of the campaign, but before then, I'd want to give it every chance, at least this season, see where it is. And I think if you got that one day, whether it was in the League Cup or in the FA Cup at Wembley, like it'd all feel like this was genuinely all worth it. And I think having that moment is a milestone. And it might be that, it's not all linear, it's not all always straight line. And it might be that you still need to move them on at some point, or it might be that something else comes, or, it might be that it's going to take a little bit of time. But in the end, it is going to bend to a massive extent Newcastle's way. And so I think enjoying the steps and enjoying the people you're having the journey with is really important.
Neil, linked into that question, and thanks, Chris, for pointing me towards this one first. But comes from Tom Dixon. Question for Neil: if Howe did leave Newcastle, what sort of manager would Newcastle should Newcastle go for? I
mean, whilst he's obviously a head case, and maybe even might have slightly questionable politics, and managed to really irritate the hierarchy at Brighton, I'd just go for De Zerbi. because you'll have 18 months minimum of fantastic attacking football. You'll be on the map. Everyone will be watching you. Everyone will be paying attention. But I think you should be looking for a really, really attacking manager. I think that is a part of, we don't just Newcastle and Liverpool have similarities in terms of place. I think there's a thing where you want the football team to like carry an aspect of character of the city, and a bit of that is get on us, we're boss, and I think that the best way you get that's with attacking football. Yeah. So I'd be looking genuinely for a manager you're able to look at who's got a maybe even a slightly patchy track record, but the one thing you can point at is he'll play aggressive front foot, attacking football that aims to stick the ball in the back of the net on a regular basis. And I think that, part of the project to use that sort of language, I think for Newcastle, and even the wider project, the one that I don't approve of, but let's just go with it for a second, is to capture the eye of the world. So again, imagine a fluent, attacking, graceful Newcastle side that played the football that people wanted to watch on a very regular basis. I think that would be the smart move. So if it's De Zerbi, it's De Zerbi. If it's a newcomer man who you're able to look at, absolutely fine. Go with the newcomer man and go from there and say, yeah, we feel as though this is our guy for at least 5 years, and he's our guy because he does this. We're going to take the swing. And again, the journey thing is the point. We're gonna get beat from time to time, but we're going to have a very good time doing it. And we think that in the meantime, we can also, it might be a pathway to a big win. That's what I'd be looking for.
Okay, next question, and it goes to goalkeepers. You have Alisson Becker, you have Marmashvili sitting in the wings waiting to come in next season. But how about Caoimhín Kelleher, the Irish lad, who's doing pretty okay for you? Do you think he'd leave Liverpool at the end of the season, ask Jordy 2 for life? And how much would Liverpool ask for him?
I think Liverpool want 30 million for him. I think that seems like it's pretty nailed on. What I would say is his contract's out the year after, so it might be that Liverpool have to compromise on that. I think he should leave Liverpool at the end of the season. I think he's shown that he's more than good enough to be a goalkeeper for a club that wants to win the Champions League and win the league, because he's doing it now. So, yeah, but I think he should go for himself. But I think Liverpool will want a fair price. I think there's a number of clubs in the country who could, who are at the top end, who could do with a new goalkeeper, and I think they should all be looking at him. I think Chelsea, Tottenham are both in that camp. Don't think Newcastle necessarily are. I know that Pope's not great with his feet, but he's good at sweeping. He's good at coming out, and he's a tremendous shot stopper. But yeah, I think Kelleher's great. I really do. I think Becker will do 1 more year minimum. Mamardashvili will come in and take that sort of sub spot. And Kelleher can't have a universe where he's number 3 in the pecking order. It would be absolutely insane. And Jaros looks pretty good. He's currently number 3 in the pecking order. He looks pretty good as well. He's a confident boy.
Good comment here from Alan. He says Neil is the most sensible red out there, speaking well here. And on other
he hasn't seen me after the Merseyside derby on Saturday.
Speaking, I'm wondering will you pick who I think you might pick, or who we might think you might pick. But to this one from Lee Jones, question for Neil: which Newcastle player would you want in your Liverpool side?
So the obvious answer is Gordon, and it was Gordon during the summer. At the minute, though, the lads who play on the left are just doing ever so well. So it would be a little bit like, you'd have another one, and what would be the point? I think Isak's great, and I think it'd be interesting if he played for someone like us, knocking around the place. I really do like Joel Linton, and feel as though he'd be an addition to any team's midfield, even if he wouldn't necessarily be a starter. So, there's sort of 3 dropped in. I want to keep seeing Hall because I think he looks promising, and he's got, he's clearly got something about him. But obviously, the idea of Gordon. I mean, he goes to the same. I know he's been in the same snooker club as me. So if I'm allowed to be soppy-eyed and romantic for a second or two, I will. I'll take Gordon, and we'd find something that could be done in terms of the makeup of the attacking squad.
Neil, if you had to lose one of your left wingers, so be it Gakpo, Diaz, if say Gordon was coming in, who would be the one you'd let go?
And that's hard. I think Diaz is having a really good season. He's a contender for our Player of the Year. I think Gakpo's a little bit younger, and I think Gakpo has a certain goal scoring quality about him. But Diaz has banged them in this season. He scored more goals than Gakpo. I think they're both just doing really well at the minute. I don't want to sound like I'm sitting on the fence here, but it is the 2 really, really good players. It may well come down to, I think, at some point. There's often been a few murmurings around Diaz that he would quite like to play in the Spanish league. He'd like to play for one of the big 2 in Spain. And it still wouldn't surprise me if it's one of the big 2 in Spain came in for him. If they've got that there, and if that happened, I think Liverpool, if that was a genuine situation, because Barcelona's money situation is so weird, but if there was a genuine sort of active interest that would meet Liverpool's price tag, I think Liverpool would find it difficult to say to Diaz, you can't have that move. Whereas I feel with Gakpo, as though he's very much, I think he's very, very, very Liverpool focused. So that sort of makes me think that. But it's like, Diaz has been great this year, wins the penalty on Sunday. They're both playing really, really well.
Daz, I'm just going to jump in again, and I don't know if this is one of the questions, and if it is, I do apologise. But I'm just interested to hear Neil's thoughts, because Neil hit the nail on the head earlier, in terms of us needing that right winger, that right-sided forward. If you were Newcastle manager now, Neil, and you were thinking, bringing somebody in, which player do you think that Newcastle should be, or which type of player do you think Newcastle should be kind of aiming for in terms of that next step?
Semenyo, yeah. I think Newcastle should. I think that they need to almost do a little bit of what they did with Trippier, but in a different way. I think when they signed Trippier, it was like, we're serious. You're an example of how serious we are, and this is the direction that we're going in, and you're going to enjoy this. I think that that's what Newcastle should be looking at. I think it is Semenyo, someone like Semenyo, who you're able to look at, who functions really well in wide areas, who carries an outraged threat. I think it's difficult to prize 1 or 2 out of a couple of other clubs, but I would just sort of think that Newcastle could be in a position to do Semenyo. There's one who I'd have for Liverpool, who I think he should leave the club he's at. I don't know if he'd go to you, because I think it'd be deemed, I don't think it would be, but it'd be deemed a bit of a sideways move, is Kudus. I think he's absolutely brilliant. And I think he'd be exactly the sort of player who would love to be Newcastle's record signing and top attacker. I think he's absolutely sprinkled with stardust. But I think that Kudus would probably want to go to a Champions League nailed-on club next, whereas I think Semenyo could see another rung, if you see what I mean. But also, I think he would elevate Newcastle towards being a genuinely top team.
Got release clause in the summer as well.
Has he? Semenyo?
Yeah. No, Kudus.
Kudus has, yeah. I think Liverpool will try and buy Kudus in the summer. I think Liverpool have watched him, and I think that he may well be the one Liverpool go for. The other one, the obvious one, really, I'm surprised it didn't say him first, is Mbuemo.
Yeah.
I think
we can link with.
Yeah. Well, that's for
Send out.
all due respect to Brentford and Bournemouth, to say that nonsense thing you've got to say. they're both doing really, really well. And Bournemouth have got serious ambitions, it seems. But if we're all truthful, it's much likely that Newcastle are playing European football next season than they are. But it's also just much likely that when Newcastle next get to play European football, they can sustain it. So for Semenyo, Newcastle would be a step up. For Wembueno, Newcastle would be a step up. And I think either of those two just makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
I know we're tight on time because we've hit the hour mark, and I'm conscious that we'll let you go, Neil. So maybe one or two quick fire questions before we get your prediction. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
I won't go for this one from Foxy about Luis Diaz because we did kind of cover him already, but I will go to this one from Tom Dixon, and it's about Federico Chiesa because we did dabble with looking at him all summer as well. But what's just your general thoughts on him?
Good player. Obviously seen that in the past, but he's only played about sort of 130 minutes of football for us so far. He had no pre-season. I think it's a bit moody. Juventus had him training like not properly in a really weird way, and I just don't know why you do that to footballers. Really, if they're good professionals who've represented your club, it just all seems so petulant. The whole I'm trying to force him out with this. Can we not all be grown-ups? But as it is, his fitness, I think, is just going to be a bit all over the place. I'd quite like it if we can get 2 decent months out of him at some point this season. Ideally, January and February to ease the burden on Salah. But ultimately, I think he's going to be very much one for next season, to be honest with you. I think he's going to need a full pre-season and getting used to everything.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah, I just want to give a shout out to Bill Ashby as well. He's been sick for a while, so get well, Bill. Good to hear that you are on the way back, Bill, I should say. Good to hear that. Yeah, we'll go with this one from Lee Jones. He says, if Salah was to leave, who would you want to replace him?
Kudus. I'd do two. If Salah was to leave, I'd do two. I'd do Kudus and I'd do Mbuemo for Liverpool. I think you need to almost belt and brace the idea of Salah going. And we talked more before about wages. I think if you were to do Kudus and Mbuemo, you wouldn't be paying them what Salah was on. I think there's some games where you want Mbuemo's goal scoring and explosiveness, and there's some games where you'd want Kudus's trickery, and also Kudus could also play where Szoboszlai plays. So you'd be introducing that option in there as well into, I don't think that would be the end of the world. I think it might be the end of Chiesa at Liverpool, but I don't think it would be the end of the world. And that's what I'd look to do. I'd do the two of them and hope that at least one really hits. And if they both really hit, then happy days.
Last thing I would like to do, or I'd like you to do, Neil, before you go, is if you could do me a favor and choose your 11 that will start.
The one I think he'll start.
Yeah, the one you think he'll start. I've got the squad here. And then give me your prediction, and then we'll let you.
Yeah, sure. So Kelleher in goal, no shadow of a doubt about that. He will then it'll be at right back. It'll be Trent Alexander-Arnold. Left back will be Andy Robertson. Shimikas is out for the week, minimum. Centre backs on the right hand side of the two will be Joe Gomez, and on the left hand side of the two will be Virgil van Dijk. It'll be Ryan Gravenberch in front of the back four.
Okay.
I think he may just do Curtis Jones and Szoboszlai.
Okay.
And then in attack, I think he will go with Gakpo off the left.
Gakpo off the left, okay.
Nunez through the middle and Salah off the right.
All right. Okay. And look, thank you for giving us your lineup. Prediction for Wednesday night. Go easy on us, please.
I think Liverpool will win 3-1, but I think the game will be still live with 5 minutes to go. So I think it'll be 2-1 to Liverpool with 5 minutes to go, and Liverpool will find a way to make it, to get a third. So as I say, I don't think it'll be comfortable. Is my point here? I think Liverpool will find it a really tough game, but I think that we will just about manage to see off the threat of Newcastle, and then hopefully hit on the counter. But I wouldn't be that surprised if it was a draw. But I feel at the minute Liverpool are just in a certain groove, and I think you're possibly playing as a little, like, theoretically at the right time, but also theoretically at the wrong time. I think the other thing to point out as well is I don't think Newcastle have, other than the League Cup, haven't been doing 2 games a week really in the same way that Liverpool have with the European games as well. So, yeah, I think we'll just have too much on the day. But I would also argue that your bigger games are the 3 that we talked about before against the poorer sides.
Neil, what a guest. Thank you.
Thank you.
Much.
It's always a pleasure. Always a pleasure, gents. Have a lovely night.
You take
Thank
care.
you,
Neil.
Take care.
Take care, mate.
Best of luck after tomorrow or Wednesday.
Brilliant stuff. Neil Atkinson, everyone of the Anfield Wrap. Brilliant guest. Fascinating conversation, as always, and some really good topics there that we've covered for sure. The reason why I wanted Neil to end on his lineup is because, boys, we've got some decisions to make. In terms
Where do we
of,
start? Where do we start?
Do we bother watching the game now? With that squad on the pitch and that score line predicted by Neil? What's the point in watching it?
yeah.
Or is there?
Well, there is always hope, and we always live hope. So, look, boys, I'll let you take the reins on this. What's your team looking like? Who's starting? What we're going for?
Well, Chris, are we still going with 4-3-3? Are we hoping that he changes it to 4-2-3-1?
I'll be honest, mate. I think it's going to be 4-3-3. I mean, I was going to say that just for time. I think, is it safe to say that the goalie and the back 4 are pretty much set in stone? Are we thinking it will be the same? I can't see it wavering from that, if I'm honest.
Yeah, it's still not over Kelly in the West Ham game. No.
And according to Eddie Howe, we defended brilliantly against Palace. So you could argue it would be a bit odd to change the 11. The 11 to change the back 4.
I'll be honest with you, Chris. I don't know if I said this yesterday or not. I actually don't think we defended too bad.
No, we didn't.
I actually don't. I've heard some fans on social saying, "Oh yeah, we're rubbish. Everyone was rubbish at the back." Blah blah blah. No, I don't think we actually defended too bad. Yeah, we lived dangerously. Burn with the clearance off the line, and we lived dangerously on the counter from the corner. But other than that, I don't think we were massively troubled. They had more shots than us, but a lot of those shots were routine. Even 1 or 2 of the saves, they were routine. They weren't like last ditch or superb saves.
Yeah, I watched the extended highlights. So I think it was about 45 minutes in total, but it was condensed. And you're absolutely right. Like, I don't think a lot of those shots, I didn't think, they're going to score. I mean, obviously I knew what the score was, but you know what I mean? I didn't necessarily think at that point, problem. I know they had, was it 16 shots they had in total?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't, I think in the vast majority, we did contain them pretty well. The problem was a little bit further up the pitch, which I'm sure we'll get to, because we'll have to somehow try and come up with this starting 11. But yeah, I agree with you. I saw a few people saying that nobody played well. But really, the defence were pretty untroubled, and obviously Byrne making that last ditch, block as well. That was pretty good. I didn't look back at the defensive display as a whole and think, bloody hell, we got battered there. I thought we contained them pretty well, considering.
So, midfield and attack, what are we going for? Are there going to be any tweaks and changes, or are you looking for the same? Good news about Isak, by the way, for anyone that hasn't seen it on social media. Isak has said in an interview today with the media that he will be fit. So he will be hopefully available to start tomorrow.
Stick him on the pitch, Pete. Stick him up there.
Get him on the pitch.
That's fine by me.
That's an easy one. That's an easy one.
Yeah, that's the easy one. Yeah. I'm going to Nali in the centre defensive midfielder position again.
Yeah.
Arguably our best player, you could say.
Him Burn.
Yeah, him or Burn on Saturday.
Yeah.
Him or Burn, I would say I would go for as standouts. But yeah, go on, boys.
Oh, I tell you what, having Keith's been watching too much of me on here. Alan Keith said, I have a feeling Almiron starts on the right to chat back with Trippier. I mean, mate, it just wouldn't surprise. It really wouldn't surprise me if we do shake things up. I will say that. But yeah, interesting he mentions about Trippier as well. But I just don't see him changing that back 4. I really don't.
it's a massive game for him to come back into as well.
It is. It is.
You know, like
Yeah, it is.
you'd like to ease him back a bit
True.
to start it. You know,
But the pace of Gakpo or Diaz running it, on your first game back is not ideal.
No.
That's for sure. But look, let's go through. Who are the other? I assume it's 4-3-3. So who's going to be the two that are going to partner Sandro Tonali? Side.
I'd go the same, Chris. I'd go the same again. But we can tweak it.
I mean, I think Joe Willock will play. I do think Joe Willock will play. Oh, I mean, yeah, go on. Let's just put it in, and then obviously Pete can critique.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's go with that. Yeah.
So J7 on the left, Gordon on the right.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if Joe Willock's playing left centre mid, that automatically puts Joe left wing.
That's the chemistry one that might come back again.
Okay. Go on,
Pete. No, I was going to say the only question mark for me looking at this 11, because obviously I agree with what you're saying, Daz. My only question mark is I'm wondering for the industrious side, is he thinking about Sean Longstaff? But that then means, because for me he can't drop Tonali. He can't. So then that would mean dropping Bruno. Would he drop Bruno for a Liverpool game with him being captain? I'm not so sure. Anyway, sorry, go on, Pete.
If there was one change that you boys would make to this Newcastle United 11, what would it be? What would be a realistic change that you would maybe make in this team?
I'll tell you what I would change.
All right.
And it's just to shake it up. That's really, being honest, that is the reason. Just to shake it up. I would go with Gordon on the left.
Okay.
I would put Joe Linton left centre mid.
All
right.
Where you go with this, Chris?
I've do you know what? I'm not even sure. I would.
Oh, God. We're down a right winger here. So we need to.
Doesn't it? By the way, boys, and I'm not trying to segue here and change the conversation. Wasn't it fascinating? Wasn't it fascinating that Neil, when he come on, was banging on about the right wing position, banging on about it, and that's from an outsider. Yeah. And this is the issue we've got. Yeah. Oh yeah. But it's like it really hammered home. And obviously what he was saying, we've been saying it for ages, haven't we, boys? But even when I'm coming to do this now, I don't want to put Murphy there. I don't want to put Miggy there. I don't really want to put Harvey Barnes there, but I'm thinking I haven't really got any other option because I want Barnes on the left, but then I want Gordon on the left.
Yeah. Interesting.
I kind of want Gordon in that left wing position, only because I kind of feel like I almost feel at times like we're just trying to shoehorn players in, and just because we want them to play. But then I'm thinking for the balance of the team, is it more about? No, I don't want Miggy. I don't want Miggy. Do you know what? Miggy makes the most sense to give balance in this team, but I don't want him. I don't want him in there.
I'm not going to lie. I thought you were going to segue to Miggy then. I thought that's what you were going to do. Go with what you think, though. Go with what you think he might do.
I hate saying this. I think he might put Sean Longstaff on the right, not right wing, right centre mid. I don't know why. And then I'm thinking, and do you know what? This is just gut feeling. I think he put Bruno in the 6. It's the wrong decision. I don't want him to do it. It's the wrong decision. Yeah, Tonali off. I do. I just feel, when we're talking about going back to basics and going back to what we know, I just have a feeling, because to me, boys, and Daz, tell me if I'm wrong here, and Pete, like if we put the same starting 11 out, is everyone just going to be going? If we get absolutely spanked 4-0, is everyone going to be going? Why has he put the same 11 out? Given that last game we didn't even have a shot, like not one shot. I'm just well, right wing. I'm still got a problem right wing, haven't I?
Yeah.
Just Pete, interject, mate. Interject.
Hang on, I want to have a go at the new Football Manager 25 that hasn't been released yet, but we've got the nearly copy. I want to go for try this 4-2-3-1.
Fix it.
Just to see what it look like. So, so get Tonali back on the pitch.
I love Sandro.
I agree with you, but I'm just it would be. I'm not going to lie, it'd be an absolute disgrace. Where is Tonali? There he is. It'd be an absolute disgrace to have if Eddie doesn't start with Tonali. It would be an absolute disgrace. I'm sorry, be crazy. Right, we're still a right winger light here, so I'll put just for now.
Always the problem we end up with.
We're always a right winger light.
Let's throw Barnes on. And have him swapping with Gordon on the left. We have Wilson as well. Not he's not going to start a game, but Wilson to come on in that as well. Let's say if we were to go goal down, maybe put Isak, put Isak maybe like a number 10, and then bring on Wilson if that was to happen. That would not obviously start Wilson.
So with Isak playing your 10,
so then actually you'd I can't touch the screen. This Football Manager really well. I didn't at that situation. If you were to bring off someone there, I would take off Barnes, move Joe Linton to the left, and one or the other. Yeah, with you go like that. If and Isak in the kind of number 10 and Wilson on, then that's if we were to go behind in this formation.
Yeah.
That was still crazy, and it's not the game to try this, but
no. But Pete, have a fiddle. I just, do you know what? It is such.
There's enough for you, Kent.
Pete's got the power, but yeah, I just.
Can we get that in a t-shirt?
No, we are not.
Pete, have a fiddle.
It'll be online for sale tomorrow.
Oh my god. For me, this is my go-to in terms of starting. This is how I would go with Joe Linton, Gordon, Isak. This would be my team. If I'm going to change anything, I'm probably doing this. I'm probably doing that if I'm going to change anything in the team. That would be my alternative team, just to put him in there, just to get in and amongst it all.
Yeah.
And Pete, didn't we say before that against the top 6 teams, Joe Linton does get amongst it then? We said something like that before. Yeah. So maybe having him in midfield might make more sense for this one.
Yeah. He does. And I'm looking at that team. There's a lot of like creativity and youthfulness in that team, particularly with Curtis Jones and Gravenberch. I still haven't seen enough from Szoboszlai since he signed for Liverpool. I think he's getting better, but he's still not been great. I'm looking at those 3 players in that midfield, and I'm thinking we throw Joe Linton in there with Tonali in particular. We've got enough kind of enough strength and power to overpower them in midfield. Tonali is deceptively strong. He is a physical guy. He likes to put himself about. And so does Joe Linton. And I think Joe Linton being all action in and around these 3 and Tonali picking up the pieces could well license Bruno to pick up little pockets of space to play. We didn't quite see it at Palace, although I don't think we ever see Newcastle do that at Palace, picking up little pockets and being able to intricately play. But he might well get the space to do that. I think that would be my go-to in terms of that. In terms of the way we're playing, but who knows? That would be my alternative if Joe Linton went in there. But if not, Barnes off, Willock on for his running power, and let's get in and amongst it. Let's get at them. Let's throw Robinson the other way. Let's get Joe Linton powering past. I mean, I watched the game yesterday against Man City, and I tell you what, Doku with his pace and his power when he came off the bench was beating Trent time and time again in there, and he kept coming back in and playing it short. But if he just drove forward and kept driving into the box, Trent don't want to catch him. Trent don't want to keep foot with him. And that would be my go-to. If we've got Joe Linton there, I'd be saying get in and around on the outside of him and just keep running into the box, because Trent don't want it. And if you keep doing that, you're going to get joy. Anything in the box, it's about, okay, at that point, if he's getting to here, where's Isaac? Is he coming short? Is he going long? And if he's coming up against Joe Gomez, I'd be going short in there, because if you're going long, Van Dijk's going to pick you up, and he's going to pick up the pieces. Can we get runners in here? Can we be seeing Joe Willett entering here? Can we be seeing there? I'm sick and tired of Gordon, when a ball comes in the box, being stood here. Get in there. Get in there, get a ball across the box, and give Van Dijk another problem to be had. Let him think not just about Isaac's running, but Gordon's running at the back. Let him think about two players. He's a superb centre-back, but let's give him something to really think about. And I want Gordon getting in on the back post and in and around things if Joe Linton's making that run. So
Pete,
that's kind of what I want to see. Sorry, that's good. Chris, sorry.
Sorry, mate. Just to add in two things, and it's come directly from the chat, and I think they're really, really good points, Stars. I'm sure you'd agree. Dunhill.
It's not this, is it? Because I'm disgusted. I wasn't an option or right wing. Is it because I have a dodgy knee? Aaron, you have to clarify that.
Pete, by the way, in case you can't see that, it says, Aaron said, can we get Pete or Chris to play right wing?
You got no chance of me playing right wing, mate. I've never played that in my life.
Maybe 20 years ago, I once been all right, but no, I haven't got the pace for that anymore. But no, I think two really good points have been made in terms of the lineup. And Aaron says Joe Linton will probably be playing left back, stroke centre back to combat Salah. Now, I think what Aaron's trying to say is, if Joe Linton plays in that left centre mid position, he's going to be supporting. He's going to be doing a lot of support in Lewis Hall. Yeah. And also, what I wanted to flag was, if Joe Linton's not there, and then you move Gordon to the left, we remember the torrid time that Gordon gave Trent Alexander-Arnold last season. You remember Trent picked up an early yellow, and then he really should have had a second yellow, and then he never got it. But it also got me thinking, to kind of contradict what Aaron's just said there. And I know we were stuck for a right winger. Given that Andy Robertson is, I wouldn't say he's struggling, but he doesn't look like the Andy Robertson of old. If you've got Gordon on the left, giving Trent hell, would it be a good game to have Joe Linton on the right? I know he's not a right winger. I know he's played there before, and he had one really good game and then one not so good game, and then he quickly shifted back out. But I'm just thinking Joe Linton up against Andy Robertson, who's very rash, can easily be wound up. Someone like Joe Linton is going to make his evening very, very uncomfortable. And obviously then that means that Joe Willock would then be in the left centre mid position in his place. So technically I'm saying what we shouldn't do, which is shoehorn players in. But I'm just thinking, so if Gordon went on the left, Joe Linton went on the right, and then Willock went centre mid, is that something that we could see happen?
I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't be against it. For me, it's not ideal in this setup. It's not ideal, and I'll tell you why. So I won't be against that for the reasons that you've just said. For the reason that you just said, and for those who put the comments in, Gordon against Trent, as you said from last season, he destroyed him. He destroyed him, and you know what? I think Gordon would be confident he could do it again, and he'd want to. They're mates, but he knows he would know he's got the better of it. In particular, in and behind, which would get a lot of space to have in and behind if we can find the right balls. The only reason why I would say maybe against it is because of their connection. It's so strong. They're so natural in their connection. And Joe Linton, and even more so for the first thing that you said, Chris, with regards to the protection here with Salah and Lewis Hall, because I don't see Lewis Hall getting up here very often, which is really interesting that Neil talked about, is that we don't see enough of this from these two in attacking wide areas, and they're both good at getting forward, and they're both good on their day at getting balls into the box. We haven't seen enough of it this season, and we need to see more from an attacking perspective, but I don't think we're going to see too much of it. But what you'll get here from him and him is transitions. So I think he will get back and help and support Lewis Salah. But if he comes back and supports in here, he'll transition there, and it's seamless. It happens naturally against Arsenal. It happened on 3, 4, 5 occasions where naturally, if Joe Linton thinks, right, I'm going to go trap that, I need to stop that attack, without even thinking, he just pulls in and takes that position. And for 5 minutes, once that attack breaks down, for 5 minutes, he'll just sit there and he'll just sit there, and it's seamless. The point that I'm making is that it's not with him, because he wants to stay forward. He wants to be that guy. And I'll be honest with you, and I don't know if anyone else has noticed it, I've not seen him do this much.
No.
And that is what his game was kind of built on that last season. The workman-like, he was up and down, getting back, helping in defense and getting back up. I see him now, and it could be by design, by the way, that he's preserving his energy up here. So you don't see him getting back here. Maybe when we're winning and we've got something to hold on to later on in the game, he gets back there. But if Willock's not doing that and then getting forward and the move breaks down, you don't see Gordon getting back there and supporting. No. That's where we're going to get caught out with that, and that. And we're going to have an extra man in here, an extra man potentially coming into this area. Gravenberch is going to get forward. If he's shattered because he's been making a lung busting run up there and can't get back, you're not going to get that from Gordon. No. And look, some people aren't like that, whereas you're going to get that from. And that's
I see a problem though, lads, in that, and it's Joe Willock, because Joe Willock, it's a good chance if he plays 2 games in 4 days that he gets injured, because he's not the. Yeah, that's the point. We're talking about Isak maybe being that injury being going off with that soft injury on against Crystal Palace, but Joe Willock. It's. I think. I'm thinking. We've talked about a few things. I think it's safer to play Joe Linton in midfield where Willock is, and have Gordon out wide like we're talking about. Maybe then look at Barnes on the right or something, and have them interchanging. And do we want to break Willock in this game?
It's a good point. It's a really good point, Daz. And we have been slightly cautious of that, haven't we? Because you're right. If Willock was to pull up, we'd all say on the reaction, wouldn't we? All of us would say, we'd go, Willock shouldn't have been playing this much football. It was too soon.
He's cautious he's cautious with Wilson, obviously, because he's just come back. He's been cautious with trying to bring Trips back as well. So what does Eddie do?
It's a conundrum, isn't it? It's a real conundrum.
Definitely. Well, let's see how it works out. I'm going to leave this one up here because this might be the lineup. But we put about 5 different ones up. So whichever one it is, I think we're going. We got it. We've gone with. But I think there's a lot of alternative. It seems quite straightforward of what the team might be, but actually we've thrown out a few alternatives there of what it could be, because it is a midweek game. I understand the change with potentially Willock, and so that might well be interesting. Sean Langstaff may well come into that equation if Willock doesn't play, and it might be that it changes again. And I'm just going to do this really quickly, lads. It may well be that it changes again, because if Sean Longstaff comes in, I genuinely believe this might well happen, and it turns which I'm not overly against either, because Sandro Tonali plays on the left for Italy, and he plays really well there on that left hand side, so he can play there. I want to see him here. But if he does make the change and bring Longstaff in, if Willock does get dropped or rested, whichever one you want to see it, it might well be that he goes with this instead. So it's more of a Longstaff.
You're forgetting every time Longstaff plays, we win a game. You can't lose there.
I prefer not to answer that, Daz. But no, who knows? I'll go back with what we had before. We've put so many now. I don't even know which one to finish.
We're bound to get it right. When we get it right on Wednesday, we'll go. Yep, we said that.
We talked about that. We were
I don't
right.
think we'll be able to claim that one.
Definitely not. Boys, let's get some predictions and let's get out of here. It's been a great preview. What we think. I'm gonna go and look. I hate the fact that I'm even saying this because normally I'm super positive in every game, but I just can't see us winning. And I hate the fact that I'm saying this. I wish I was there Wednesday, but I think by the time I got up after work, it'd probably be already in the first half. I'm going to go Liverpool are going to win 3-1. I do think we're going to score, but I just hate the fact that I'm actually saying that we're going to predict to lose a game because I don't like doing it. But yeah, I do think, unfortunately, we're going to lose this one. But boys, that's Chris. What are you going for?
Anyhow, masterclass 1-1 draw. I'm on the fence.
Don't get me excited about this. I'll take a point.
I take a draw. Yeah.
I'll take a point. You're making me happy about this. But Chris, Daz has gone for a draw. What score draw did you say?
1-1, yeah.
1-1. Okay. Nathan, I hope you're wrong about that, mate. Chris, what are you going for, fella?
Pete, strap yourself in, mate.
Oh my God, don't
strap yourself in.
Please.
Right, I had a big rallying call to the boys earlier. Me red mates. I had done a little voice note. I was giving it large, chest out.
How many minutes?
3.5.
Your little voice notes.
3.5.
Yeah, you give us 20-minute voice notes.
It was purely just on the game, though. It was purely just on the game. So I'm going out with the lads after work on Wednesday, and maybe. Do you know what it is? And it's only because all the stars are aligning. Okay, so I said to them a few weeks ago. I said you've got Real Madrid, you've got Man City, you've got Newcastle, then you've got the derby. I said for me, I want you to win all your games. I want you to win all your games before you come to St. James's Park. And in many ways, and this isn't what I wanted, but in many ways, it couldn't have landed any better for Newcastle. Now, this is going to get clipped probably. Couldn't have landed any better for Newcastle. We lose at home to West Ham, shockingly. We then go to Crystal Palace. We're absolutely dreadful. Now, I'm looking at it from the player's perspective, Eddie Howe's perspective, and I'm thinking, if there's any time to have a reaction, it's now. You've got the Premier League elect coming to St. James's Park. Under the lights, St. James's Park. I'm just thinking, especially looking back at last season, to me, it's a simple pre-match talk to the players for Eddie Howe. He should be playing the clip of the highlights from last season when Darwin Núñez come on, when we were down to when they were down to 10 men, and he turned the game like that, and he's going to be saying, "Are you going to do that again?" We dominated for large parts in that game, so we know we can do it. And it was one of my old workmates said this to me years ago, because I used to very much look at the results and go, well, they've won 5 on the bounce, they're going to win. And he was always the opposite. He used to go, no, the due a loss, or the due a draw, or the due to drop something, because you can't consistently keep winning. And so that's why I reckon we're going to reverse what happened last season. And I think we're going to beat them 2-1. Because everybody thinks this is a banker for Liverpool. Or they've beaten Real Madrid, they've beaten Man City. Newcastle lost to West Ham. Newcastle, dropped points against Palace, didn't even have a shot. And I just think wouldn't it just be poetic?
It's all set up.
It's set up, mate. That's exactly it. It's set up. It's the hope that kills you. It is. and you know what? If if it ends up being 3-0, I'm going to be devastated. But it's just too much. We all know football's unpredictable, boys. We all know that. It's too set up for Liverpool. Everyone expects Liverpool to come to St. James's Park and wipe the floor with us. Everybody, us included. So part of me is like, it would just be typical Newcastle, and it would be typical of this Premier League season. I've already wound the boys up. I've already gone, Arsenal are going to win, Chelsea are going to win, and we're going to beat you. And then all of a sudden, everyone will go, ooh, title race is back on. And yeah, 2-1 Newcastle.
Okay. I'll take it.
Wow.
I'll take it.
I've been inspired by Chris there.
We will be celebrating on Wednesday night if we manage to pull that rain in.
That's what I'm doing.
Longest prediction ever. Yeah. Sorry, Josie. I hope I've encouraged everyone. Or maybe not Foxy.
Encouraged or false hope. One of the two. But look, let's hope that you are right. Let's hope that we do take the win in there and we can all celebrate it. That is for sure. But fantastic preview. Absolutely loved it. Great to have Neil on and great to discuss the tactics and what the potentials are, because we finally got some alternative potentials. It's not quite straightforward, the lineups, but yeah, I think there's some false hope. Certainly looking forward to it.
I've got it ready.
That could be the chat. That could be the chat for sure.
Right. I think we're back tomorrow. Are you for top table talk?
We are. Panel is set. Panel is set. 6:30. 6:30. We're back tomorrow.
Ooh, okay.
Panel is set for tomorrow. There's a few very interested panel guests that want to come and talk on this show tomorrow night. I wonder why. But yeah, it should be an interesting one. Looking forward to it.
Awesome.
Don't need them, Pete.
That's it. Make sure you smash that like button on the way out. And if you're around tomorrow, we'll see you tomorrow. Good night, everyone. For Gordon.